Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tennessee Farmers Market Vendor Bootcamp training. This is our first training of the 6 sessions that will be offered this year for the vendor training. So of these sessions, you will need to watch and complete the survey evaluation form for 5 of these in order to receive TAEP certification. So again, we will share more about that, and that is in your email as well. The survey link will be sent out to those that are registered after this training is complete. So again, welcome to the Tennessee Farmers Market Vendor Bootcamp. Today we have Les Humpal and Eryn Bell sharing record-keeping tools and tricks. My name is Rachel Painter, and I am a value-added agriculture marketing extension specialist with the Center for Profitable Agriculture. And I will be your moderator today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. Here is my email on screen if you are watching this recorded. And again, you can reach out to me at any time throughout the year if you have any questions at all about being a farmers market vendor or manager. So again, if you are watching this to receive TAEP educational credit, this counts as one of your special requirements if you complete 5 of these 6 sessions. So to do so, you would need to view 5 of the 6 one-hour sessions and complete the evaluation survey for each of those sessions by April 1st. If you are not familiar with TAEP, you can find more information on the TDA website. So the TDA, Tennessee Department of Agriculture, offers the Tennessee Agricultural Enhancement Program cost share funding. And again, you will need to watch 5 of the 6 one-hour sessions to qualify for one of your special requirements educational credits. To receive this credit for your TAEP application B, you would need to complete 2 special requirements. So this would just count as one. If you have any questions about that, you can email them at producer.diversification@tn.gov. Again, I work for the Center for Profitable Agriculture. This is a center within UT Extension. So if you are not familiar with UT Extension, we have an agent in every county, and I would encourage you to find your local extension agent and connect with them, ask them questions, and again, they can reach out to me or any of our other specialists, like Les and Eryn, at any time. So you can find more information about our center at cpa.tennessee.edu. And I'm sure Les and Eryn will share more about their Center of Farm Management here pretty soon. Again, you can find your local agent. There's one in all 95 counties. We also have regional offices and ag research farms throughout the state offering trial programs and field days to help you learn. So again, we are here to educate and help. And again, find your local agent. Ask us questions at any time. We are also collaborating with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture to offer this training. Again, they are in charge of the TAEP program and also the Pick Tennessee Products website and platform. If you are not familiar with that, I would encourage you to find that online. Again, Pick Tennessee Products, and I would encourage you to get listed if you are a farmer offering products. That is a free marketing platform for you. We are also partnering with the Tennessee Association of Farmers Markets. You can find more information about their association at tnfarmersmarkets.org, and I would encourage you to join them and also join them at the Pick Tennessee Conference. So they are one of the 8 associations that host the Pick Tennessee Conference every year, and that is coming up in February. So registration is open for the Pick Tennessee Conference, and I would encourage you to register and join us there. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Les and Eryn Bell. They are both UT Extension Farm Management Specialists, and I'm sure they will share more about their program with you, but they are part of the Manage program. So again, they are here to help. They are specialists with UT Extension, just like I am. And again, you can contact them directly or through your local extension agent. So now I'll turn it over to Les and Eryn.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Does this show up? Presentation? Okay. Well, thank you. On behalf of Eryn and myself, welcome to the first edition of the Farmers Market Bootcamp. Today, we'll be covering some record-keeping tips and tricks, but I think more importantly, we're going to be kind of looking at some things that within our work with individual farmers that we find that are very helpful to them. As Rachel mentioned, we both work in the Manage program, which is part of the University of Tennessee Center for Farm Management. And our focus here is really working with producers, whether beginning full-time or value-added producers, helping them make better decisions for their operation. So today, what we want to look at is, when we look at not only starting a farm or ag business, but even those that have been in business for a while, January is a great time to kind of look back and see what we've done in the past, what worked, what didn't work, and then going forward, what we can change in the future. Whether, when you're starting a business or even a existing one, you want to kind of determine some of those values that will kind of serve as that foundation for the business. And developing a business plan is one of those good ways of doing that. And, a business plan, it's a document that kind of defines and summarizes, kind of how the resources and financing will kind of be utilized to get the most out of not only your financial, marketing, but also operational goals. And, the process of writing a business plan, even if it's only a couple pages or 20 pages, it's really helpful in kind of identifying some of those strategies to utilize resources efficiently and maximize profitability. Another thing that's really great about having a business plan developed, it's often required if you want to secure some financing, whether it's through a lender or internally within an organization. Maybe it's other family members that be involved. But having something written down in a document that kind of gives that basis is also great to have. Another thing, as far as if you're thinking about applying for any grants through TDA or USDA, other grant opportunities, maybe some farmer veteran coalitions or value-added producer grants or dairy grants, they're going to require a business plan. And business plan can vary greatly as far as the length. It can be just a few pages or 20, depending on kind of the scope of that business and the target audience. Having that business plan is great, but also the thing that we'll talk a little bit more about is kind of choosing and implementing a record-keeping system. And record-keeping system could be a notebook. It could be a true notebook with a spiral backdrop with sheets in it, or a Excel spreadsheet, Quicken or QuickBooks. Whatever you use, it should probably best match what you want from your records. Of course, why keeping records? It's kind of proof of what you've done, what you plan to do. The institutional requirements, kind of referring to banks or lending institutions, they want to have to see that their investment is on track, that the finances that you've received is being used correctly. Of course, we know taxes needs to be completed each and every year. Having a good set of records will go a long way in making that task much easier. Also, I want to kind of point out, having a good set of records. In the past, I've kind of worked with producers who would, any type of receipt or invoice that would get, they would turn over to an outside bookkeeper. They would take care of all their payments, loan payments, payments to co-op and that type of thing. But they never really managed their finances or records through the year, which kind of hurt them in a way. They weren't really able to take full advantage of their resources to make those long-term decisions until it was kind of almost too late in a sense. So, being involved with a record-keeping system or keeping your records will kind of help those producers stay on top. It's a decision aid, determining those break-evens. Also, on a decision aid, they're saying that, a decision, if you make no decision, it might be the best option. However, it should be really determined with some insight, and having those records will allow you to do that. Environmental, if you're having an organic farm, those are very vital to have those type of records. Currently, past records, I think they typically have to be 3 to 5 years that you have to keep them on hand. And even going forward, having letting your customers kind of know as far as what you used as far as either chemicals or non-chemicals, those that raise animals, vaccines that are used. More and more regulations are kind of being tied up to meet those needs of not only the producers, but also protect those consumers as well. And then we'll talk about, the financial records versus production records here as well. So, how often should, some of the criteria for record keeping and how often do you update? What I'd like to, really stress is the timing isn't as important as to what meets your needs, right? If you have a small operation, it might be once a week or once every 2 weeks. If you have a bigger operation where you have more invoices coming in, more payments, it may be daily or multiple times a day. But really set up a time on a consistent basis. If it's going to be Friday morning at 9 a.m. for an hour, make that your time that you add those records in. Again, whether you're using a Quicken system or just Excel or even a Spiral notebook. Another thing I really suggest that's very helpful is a balance sheet. Listing your assets and liability. A balance sheet really is a great determinant as far as telling the true health of your farm from one year to the next. If you look at only tax records, that only tells part of the story. A balance sheet will show whether you're moving in the right direction or if you're sliding back. It all involves a number of indexes as far as current liabilities, what you have, your assets, some of those ratios, debt to equity ratios as well. So again, it's a great thing to have as far as learning your total health of your business. And also, a good set of records will help you in production as far as generating some of the cost and production expenses of an enterprise. And when I refer to an enterprise, of course, when we look at a whole farm, it can have many different aspects to it. If you have a cow-calf operation, that can be one enterprise. If you have row crop, that'd be an additional enterprise, or raising strawberries. So, a farm could have many different enterprises, and having them separated out individually will allow you to analyze, what is making you money, what isn't, or where changes can need to be made. Cash flow statements. That's something that Eryn and myself can really help with as far as comparing on an annual basis. At the beginning of the year, looking at a monthly budget, it kind of allows you to kind of generate comparisons as far as you put one together in January as they go through the months to see how close you are to those budgets and where changes may need to be made. Also, keeping track of those production records. Oftentimes I'll be on a farm, they'll have a good set of financial records, but their production records are kind of lacking, and it makes it difficult to really analyze how well their farm is doing. So having a good set of those production records is very helpful, and that can be based on a unit. So it could be an acre if you're in, say, row crop production. It could be on square foot or linear foot on a vegetable farmer's market vegetable farm, or on a unit basis per cow or sheep or goat. And then also, we want to have, no matter what type of record keeping system is, this balance to that bank statement on a regular basis. And I think one thing that kind of lacks a lot of times within a family operation is that it's not shared enough within the owners, operators of that business. Get more people involved within that decision-making process, understanding the records in the direction that you want to head. So as far as, what they can do for you as far as improving the health of the farm business, again, making that informed decisions. Records can be provided on the basis of creating an accurate budget. And we'll look at some of these enterprise budgets, how we kind of develop them a little bit later here. and also, creating accurate financial statements. We talk about, the Schedule F, and also the income statement. Without those detailed records, it doesn't really tell the true story. So again, these are things that Eryn, myself, and the other managed agents are able to help you with going forward. So when we look at the financial records, we're looking at, sales, purchases, budgets. On the production side, it can be broken down into, if you have a calf operation, the calving rate or death loss, crop yields, seeding rates, fertilizer, and also kind of one thing that gets missed, I think, a lot of times is dates and weather conditions. Keeping those production records together, what dates were the crop planted, harvested? Was there a weather event that caused a decrease in yields? So this way you're better able to analyze your production system, matching up with the financial records and where changes could be made. So they're interchangeable. Like I mentioned before, if you don't have a good production records, it's hard to kind of analyze thoroughly. So it's kind of a back and forth within the financial records and production. So, you determine that profitability of each enterprise. Any future changes or improvements we want to look at on the production records, and also a good set of production records go a long way in qualifying for any kind of government or disaster payments through the Farm Service Agency. And those who haven't visited with Farm Service Agency in your county, I strongly just suggest that you do that. They have many great programs, not only on a disaster side, but also on some loan programs and other programs that might be of benefit for you. So we want to talk a little bit about the enterprise budgets. It's a way to estimate the cost and revenue of a single enterprise and assess that feasibility or profitability within that enterprise. For instance, how much do you make on corn versus soybeans, and whether you need to, say, expand one enterprise and contract the other. Another thing too is if you're looking at adding a new enterprise or testing out some new method as far as maybe doing organic or planting non-GMO corn to see which works best for you. How do snap beans versus compared to soybeans is another example of creating an enterprise budget. So parts of that enterprise budget, of course, is going to be the revenue side. The sales that you receive from either farmers market, on farm, internet sales, of course, minus costs and your returns. The second category there is going to be, we divide things up with variable expense, also called operating costs. And these are the costs that associated within an enterprise that if you were not raising that enterprise, for instance, you weren't raising strawberries, you wouldn't have those costs in fertilizers or chemicals or harvesting costs. The fixed costs or ownership, sometimes referred to as overhead costs, that's going to be, any land costs that you would have, machinery, insurance, taxes, those type of things that need to be paid no matter what. We often get questions as far as what you do with machinery costs. Do you split it up on each enterprise, or do you lump together? If you have many enterprises, it's kind of difficult to separate out each category within the machinery cost. We also oftentimes suggest that you just put all the machinery costs together into one overhead category, and at the end of the year, kind of divide it up. So if you have a cow-calf operation that's 20% or 50% of your business, then 50% of the machinery cost would go to that. And say if your strawberries are only 5%, strawberries will get 5%. Opportunity costs, those are, we often refer to, would be your labor, your own labor, not hired labor, but your own. So if you're devoting, say, 10 hours or say 200 hours to your cattle operation each year, and your time is valued at $20, you want to add that in to get a good indication as if your time is best spent there or elsewhere. This is an example of a simple budget. This one is from our friends at Penn State, based on sweet corn budget. As you can see at the top, you have the receipts for the sweet corn and then the variable expenses underneath. And it's done on unit basis. So, it can be a unit, could be an acre, a ton, a pound. Looking at each individual cost, broken down, fertilizer, if there's any chemical cost, irrigation is labor as well. Also, a good set of budgets is from our friends at the Center for Crop Diversification at the University of Kentucky. They have a number of different budgets, and they break theirs down more on a per foot or linear row base, which better matches small farm production. Another thing to kind of keep in mind, as far as especially those raising vegetable or fruit, as far as the harvesting cost, those can be in packaging, marketing costs can be a big part of that operation. And if in years where the production probably isn't there, it may be costing you more to harvest and market it than you should. And this way it helps you kind of determine whether you should go ahead to harvest and complete it out. So again, this is part of the second part, looking at the fixed cost and how those are added in. Cash flow planning, as mentioned before, it really helps to kind of set up on a monthly basis. What this does, it helps the producers understand, when things are due. Like I mentioned before, things are only a couple times a year, maybe insurance or taxes, when those payments need to be made and what source of incomes are coming in. It also helps kind of alleviate a lot of the anxiety over the year, having a better understanding of when those payments are due. Can also help alert on the other side of it, the operator working. If you see an opportunity, for instance, you have something to sell in November, say cattle, but you see an opportunity maybe to sell them in January for more money or for tax reasons, but you have some obligations due, you can work with your lender and kind of show them what you will be doing and why that makes sense as far as delaying those sales to achieve a better net return. Cash flow planning, it helps project some of those costs and uses as far as loan payments, taxes, and also owner draw. And kind of just show you a simple explanation here of what a cash flow may look like. We have our inflows at the top, including any, say, personal income from side ventures. We have sale of cattle and hay across different times of the year, and also on the outflow side. So again, this helps you kind of have a better idea of when payments are due, when income is coming in and generated, and if there's any shortages that need to be covered as far as on a cash basis. I want to kind of talk a little bit of a couple of the tools that we use. And one is Quicken. Accounting software is really set up much like in a checkbook. And a number of farms that we work with do use Quicken for its kind of simplicity and a little bit cheaper cost. It's set up as a tag system, which is similar to an enterprise. Now, Quicken doesn't calculate payroll. It doesn't do many of the other, say, invoicing or counting that, say, QuickBooks does. But however, it does a great job with cash flows as far as by tag or enterprise, as you can see with the inflow side and the outflow, and it breaks it down into categories. One thing I like about the Quickens, as far as when you're entering information in, say if you go to the co-op and buy some chemicals, and you can divide it among, say, your blackberries or blueberry production, and it kind of categorize there for you very simply. And the power of a lot of these softwares is the reports that it can pull up. End of the year reports are very quick to do and to retrieve. So even though it does take some time and effort on the front end, at the back end, as far as pulling these reports, makes it much more easier to use. Now, another feature of both Quicken and QuickBooks is that you can export your information to Excel to further kind of analyze the records of your business. You can look at the cash flow by tag to determine the profitability of outsourcing. The processing maybe berries. jams or jellies to be sold by your business. One thing that Quicken doesn't do, it doesn't really allow you to analyze your information. So Excel, you're able to kind of do that more so. So in Excel, you can then kind of begin to evaluate the performance of your operation. For example, you can look at the overall profitability of the entire business and consider what changes you can make to change your overall profitability. So the cash flow by tag report separates all those transactions into inflows and outflows. And furthermore, you can kind of see how it's, you can have it separated out and then add any type of categories you want, or to evaluate it, you can go further as far as value on a per cost unit basis, whether if you want to process your own berries in a commercial kitchen on your farm. I just want to kind of touch on QuickBooks. QuickBooks is made for those businesses that have payroll. If you have employees, you would do a lot of invoicing, sale orders. QuickBooks also works with Square if you're using that software. Where so again, QuickBooks is much more in depth. But again, whatever system you use should be one that best fits your operation. So with QuickBooks, you can have profit and loss statements, produce balance sheets, receivables, payable reports, and also if you do some contracting, if you have contract labor, you can use those 1099 reports, keep track of those, and issue those at the end of the year, and also inventory reports, things that Quicken doesn't do, but QuickBooks can kind of cover those for you. So again, whether you're using Excel, Quickens, QuickBooks, use the one that's going to be best represented for your operation. So, kind of in closing on my part, analyzing that performance of the farm business in the past year, we want to analyze it on a whole farm basis and then on each enterprise. Using a balance sheet kind of examines the past year's profitability, liquidity, and solvency. And if you use year after year, your data becomes more precise and allows you to evaluate your production efficiencies much better. So the more you use it, the better data you have and the better decisions you can make for your operation. So that's all that I have here. I'll turn it over to Eryn and let her take care of her part here.
All right, perfect. And Les, if you just want to click through them for me, that'd be great.
Sure.
All right, so good morning. My name is Eryn Bell. I'm with the Center of Farm Management with Les. I'm excited to be a part of today and thankful that Rachel asked us to be on. So following Les's discussion, I'm going to have us dive more into the area of record keeping specifically for tax purposes. We're not going to get too heavy into this today, but it's almost impossible to talk about record keeping without talking about the importance of filing accurate tax reports. So we're just going to jump right in, starting with the most common tax form used, which is going to be your Schedule F, also known as your profit or loss from farming. So this form is used to report your farm income as well as your farm expenses to determine the gain or loss you acquired over the year. So I always like to pause at this part and just kind of talk about what is the IRS deriving from this form. So whatever is reported on here is subject to federal income tax and self-employment tax. So what this means is you have two different taxes being drawn out of this form. So for example, if you have a profitable year, you're going to be charged what's called a self-employment tax. That's going to be 15.3%, which covers your Social Security and your Medicare. Then on top of that, you're also going to have your federal income tax taken out, which is based on whatever tax bracket you personally fall into. That can be you on your own or your household. So I just always like to just explain what's coming out of this form. Let's go to the next one. All right, so I'm sure you guys are really familiar with this form, but just in case you're not, I did want to just show it in its entirety. So the top of the form is where you put your personal information, like your name and your social security number. Part 1 then covers your farm income, followed by Part 2, which covers your farm expenses. Then at the bottom, that's where you're going to report your net farm profit or loss. You can go to the next. So zooming in on a couple of these sections, so here's Part 1, which breaks down all of your farm income. So this is anything you sold, whether it's livestock or crops, any ag payments you received, crop insurance, everything that you brought in as a credit falls into this section. I do want to point out line items 1 and 2 as many times. These can just kind of be misunderstood. So line 1A is for the sale of any livestock or products that have been purchased and resold, whereas line 2 is for the sale of livestock and other items that you have raised from the very beginning. So, for example, let's say you purchase eggs from a farm, you take them and resell them. That's going to be reported under line item 1. However, let's say you own chickens, you take your own eggs and sell them, that's going to be listed under line item 2. So why is this important to you? Well, if you notice under line item 1, you also have sections A, B, and C. Line A is how much you sold that product for. B is the cost or basis of that product to you. And then line C is how much you made after that expense has been taken out. So with items listed under that line item 1, you have the ability to take out what those items cost you, reducing the total income tax amount you are paying on. So it reduces the income that you report is kind of the easiest way to put it. So again, you don't want to pay more taxes than you have to, so I always like to point out that difference. All right, you can go to the next one. All right, so jumping down to Part 2, this is where all expenses are going to be broken out. This is going to be any money that you spent on herbicides, fertilizers, supplies, gas, seeds, anything that you spent on your farming operation is going to be reported here. You then total these expenses on line 33, subtract that from your income Part 1, and that's how you determine your farm's net profit or loss. And again, that is then how the taxes are taken out. So one of my favorite things about this form is that it's already broken up into its own categories, which is nice for us as far as record keeping goes. So for example, anything you spend on feed, that's automatically going to go on line item 16. Or let's say you purchase a lot of seeds and plants, that's going to go on line item 26. So they've kind of already established a record keeping template for us. We just have to follow through with it. All right, next one. So I'm going to show you an example of a way to keep up with the records you need for your taxes. This is kind of a simple spreadsheet I created for a client who needed help keeping up with tax records. They were just getting started. So if you can see across the bottom of this, we have each bank statement by the month. So what this person did, this allowed them to download their online bank statement and simply copy and paste it into this spreadsheet. From there, then, they could simply go to the line item column that I created for them. That's the one that's kind of shown with that drop-down box for you. So in that column, every single line item that is found on Schedule F is found as an option to click on. So they can choose which line item that expense or income falls into. That way, at the end of the year, they could click that category, total it up, and then put it into their Schedule F. I do want to point out with this, I do recommend doing this and filling it out monthly, as it is really hard to go back, let's say it's June, to go back in February and March and remember what those expenses or incomes came from. So this was just a simple Excel spreadsheet way to keep up with that. Okay, next one. All right, so next per their request, and Les kind of already mentioned this, but they wanted to also break out their incomes and expenses based on their enterprise. This was just done for them privately. It didn't have anything to do with tax purposes. But with this farm, it was kind of interesting. It was a sheep and an emu farm, but they wanted to break out the sheep versus the emu and see what was coming and going out of each. So that was just another way. Again, this was just a simple drop-down box they could fill out as they went through their bank statements monthly. All right, next one. Okay, so lastly, as far as taxes go, how do records affect taxes and why is it important to have good record keeping? Well, first, it helps your tax preparer complete an accurate tax return. This will end up saving you money in the long run. You want to make sure that they're being filled out accurately. It's kind of like going back to that Schedule F, those line items 1 and 2. You want to make sure those are done right. Good records also helps reduce the cost of tax return preparation. If you walk in there with a box full of receipts, yes, they're going to help you, but it's going to take them more time and probably cost you more money. Keeping up with records throughout the year will reduce the time you spend on tax return preparation. The goal is to spend a little bit of time throughout the year, each month on taxes, not having to spend a ton of time at the end of the year because you haven't prepared it all. So that's kind of the goal with that. Lastly, keeping up with records reduces stress around tax time. I'm all about anything that reduces stress. So if keeping up with records is what I need to do, that's what I'm going to do. So Les already mentioned this, but having accurate records, it's going to also help you determine the health of your farm business. It's not just for tax preparation. It's important for it, but that's not its only purpose. And we always have to do this little disclaimer, but all information is considered educational, not legal or tax advice. Always be sure to consult a CPA. So we always highly recommend using a tax preparer who has experience with farming clients, as there are a lot of little details, rules, and exemptions that come with farming that aren't common knowledge. So having a knowledgeable tax preparer can really be a financial benefit to you. All right, so next we're going to briefly talk about ag sales and use tax exemption. We're not going to dive into the sales tax part of it, but more on you qualifying for this exemption when you're making purchases for your farm. So per the Tennessee Department of Revenue, this provides a sales and use tax exemption to qualified farmers, timber harvesters, and nursery operators for the purchase of tangible personal property used primarily in ag operations. So in other words, if you're found to be a qualifying ag operation, you're going to be exempt from paying the state tax of 7%, as well as any local taxes that you may run into. Generally, those aren't too high, 2.25 to 2.75%. So I've got the full application on the right. It's very simple and straightforward. The top part is your personal information, followed by the type of ownership your farm is under. And then lastly, you choose which option qualifies you for the exemption. All right, next one. All right, so what does get you qualified for this exemption? Well, there's multiple ways to do that. First, if you sell $1,500 worth of products per year on average, if you provide for hire custom ag services, so that could be if you have a tractor and equipment and you haul it to other farms and you plow and you plant, that would also qualify you as well. If you own land that falls under the Ag, Forest, and Open Space Land Act, also known as the Greenbelt. If you have a federal income tax return, which we just talked about, that includes a Schedule F, or if you have any farm rental activity. And there are other ways that you can show the Commissioner of Revenue that you are in the business of farming. Like, let's say you're just getting started, you've made no sales yet, but it's coming in the following season. You just have to show them that plan, and they'll more than likely get you ahead of time that tax exempt card. All right, so let's say, great, you're qualified, but now what can you purchase with this exemption? So I'm not going to read through this entire list. And a more detailed list can be found in the Tennessee Tax Manual. I do recommend you go look at that manual. It is extremely helpful, and they do update it every year. But one item I wanted to make sure to point out, because it is new, is the second one down, building and fencing material. So let's say you're putting up cattle fencing on your farm. You can go purchase all the materials you need now, tax exempt, which is really nice. Kind of some other interesting things they have on here. They have software. If you use any programming on your farm, whether that's financial or if it has to do with drones that you use, those are also qualified to be tax exempt too. All right, next one. Okay, so what's not exempt? I just wanted to quickly talk about these. I'm guessing these made the list because people have tried it before. But any vehicles or trucks that are, used on public highways and the gas you put in them, those are not tax exempt. Household appliances, lawn mowers that are used more for residential purposes, and then general farm clothing is not included in this either. All right, next. Okay, so how does this tie into record keeping? Well, whenever there are exemptions, especially when you're dealing with taxes, it's always good to keep a paper trail just in case of an audit. So with this exemption, not many people are aware of this, but they actually require that you maintain records for exempt purchases for at least 3 years. So that's how far back they can ask for those records. So this is on the buyer's end. Those of us that are purchasing, that tax exempt item. Sellers, they're kind of put in the same boat. If they're selling a tax exempt item, they have to keep a copy of the buyer's name, address, and description of the purchase on each invoice. So with that being said, you don't have to overcomplicate this. I would simply note receipts that are tax exempt and either, put them on a file in your computer or just simply keep a paper copy filed away. But you do want to hold on to those for a 3-year period, because that's how far back they can ask for those. So for more Tennessee Ag tax details, I do have the link here for that manual, and I'm sure I can share this presentation with Rachel later and she can share that out. All right, next one. Okay, so speaking of taxes, Tennessee also has a land tax relief program for those whose land qualifies. So do take note that although it lowers the taxes on the land, it does not lower taxes on structures sitting on the property. So just a little side note I always like to throw out there. So in order to qualify, the land must be deemed as either agricultural, forest, or open space. It must be 15 acres or more and bring in an average of $1,500 per year. Again, that kind of ties us back to the tax exemption, as you also have to earn $1,500 a year to qualify for that as well. So they're all kind of tied together. You apply through the county tax assessor's office. It's a very easy process, and it's definitely worth doing if you haven't already. And again, I do have that Greenbelt manual attached here just in case you want to look at it in more detail. All right. Unless you can actually skip that one. All right, so we want to make sure to leave you all with the resources that we listed throughout the presentation. Again, I'll share this with Rachel so she can share it with you guys. We've got the Farmer's Tax Guide, the Profit or Loss from Farming form, the Sales Tax and Use Tax Exemption, as well as the Greenbelt Manual. And this last one, the Center for Crop Diversification. So this is just a really good resource that Les wanted to make sure to share with you all. It comes from the University of Kentucky. They keep running price reports, marketing tools, budgets, produce safety guidelines. They keep it all really up to date. And it's just a great resource for you all to check out as produce sellers. All right. Okay, so closing out, I did want to leave you all with a little more information on what Les and I do. And I know Les kind of explained it as he was going through his presentation. So we do work for the University of Tennessee Center of Farm Management. I've got our website linked on here. Les and I, along with several other team members across the state, assist producers with farm and financial planning. That's kind of our specialty. We host multiple programs such as Master Farm Manager, Farming Fundamentals, Farm Transition Planning, and Income Tax seminars. Les, can you hit that last one? All right, so, and real quick, I did want to talk about our newest program, Farming Fundamentals. So with so many people wanting to start a farm or just interested in getting involved, we created a program specifically for them. This course is all online and can be completed at your own pace. With it, our goal is to help get you established in principal, business, and farming concepts. They're going to help you get started out on the right foot and help you just think through some of those initial tough decisions that you have to make. So with this course, we have a set of core classes that you have to take. These include business concepts we want to make sure that you get, such as financial statements, taxes, different business entities, and farming foundations. On top of that, we then have a list of classes you can choose from based off of what interests you. Are you going into livestock or specialty crops, value-added products? So then from there, you can choose which class best suits your needs. So again, feel free to go to our website and check it out or reach out to one of us and we'd be happy to get you signed up. All right, and that is all that Les and I have. Again, thank you all so much for having us. And Rachel, thanks for having us on.
Perfect. Thank you both. I know we do have some questions in the Q&A, and I will let you all start looking at those, Les and Eryn, while we let Jennifer Anthony with the Second Harvest Food Bank share her screen and begin her presentation.
As Rachel said, I am with Second Harvest Food Bank. My name is Jennifer. I am the Farm to Family Coordinator here. I'm very excited to speaking with all of you today, and I hope that you will help us spread the word about this wonderful opportunity for the Local Food Purchase Assistance Grant. So, sorry, I'm just trying to advance. There we go. So there are 5 Feeding America food banks that serve the 95 counties in Tennessee. So we have them throughout the state. This is pertinent because we've received $8.2 million to spend on local food in the state of Tennessee. This is a grant that we are working very closely with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture to locate partnerships for local and regional farmers and producers across our service area. So I just want to point out the state is divided into groups based on the food bank that services that area. So mine in particular is the region that is all in green. I am located here in Nashville, but you can see that we also have a food bank out in Mid-South, East Tennessee, Chattanooga, and of course the Northeast. So this is important because as we look for producers and suppliers, me in particular, I'm going to be looking at the counties that I service. However, if there are producers that are located in the other areas with the other food banks, I'll be open to working with those suppliers as well. But I first will notify my counterpart in those areas to see if they can partner and handle product. So again, we have $8.2 million. The life of the grant is going to run November 2022. So we are now started purchasing. We have contract in hand, and this will go till August 2024. So the counties I wanted to have you take a look at those was because we have partner agencies in each of those counties. Counties tend to have several agencies. These are important because with this grant, what we're hoping to do is connect the farmer supplier with those agencies. So the food bank will pay for products, and then those partner agencies will come pick up, and then they'll distribute the product within the community. So what's nice about this grant, a lot of the vendors that we partner with will be servicing their areas with their products. Of course, if it's a larger amount of product, we would arrange freight and bring it back to the food bank so that it can be redistributed throughout our service area. So the goal of this grant is to partner with farmers and producers that are socially disadvantaged. This is a very long definition. The USDA, defines socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers as those belonging to groups that have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice. It also includes women farmers as well as veteran farmers. So in that, we are working closely with our Department of Agriculture. They have encouraged all farms and suppliers to reach out to their food bank because all will be considered for the grant, because our Department of Ag has deemed all farmers and producers as socially disadvantaged. So I do want to stress that. So, we, like I said, are saying, please reach out to us. Don't be swayed by that definition. So while growing the food supply, the food banks will be assessing our partner agencies for capacity. So each food bank will work with their agencies to develop a plan to build capacity that will hopefully go beyond the life of the LFPA funding. So basically, to build capacity, we're looking to support sustainability and efforts beyond the grant. So, for example, if a partner agency in needing to build capacity to receive product needs things such as food storage, help with food transportation, fuel costs, technology, or staffing, we have about 40% of the grant slotted for those types of capacity building. So again, each food bank does have a farm to family coordinator. The role of that person, myself in particular, is to build these relationships between the partner agency and the service area and to connect them with local and regional farmers. Again, we're there right from the beginning to the end of the process. So like right now, for instance, I'm purchasing product. I'm locating the agency that's the best fit, coordinating them coming out on a schedule, and then taking the products out back to their food banks for distribution. So the primary goal regarding food in this program is to keep the food distribution within the food bank service area, and of course, then share across the state. So just to give an idea of like the efforts that I'm taking to hopefully partner and network, of course, being on your call today with the UT Extension, I'm very grateful for that. I've been on farmers market manager calls throughout the state. We are going to be at the Pick Tennessee conference. We did purchase a table, a booth. So if folks are curious and want to go more in depth, we'll be there to talk with you regarding it. Nonprofits, we've had great connections made with the Tennessee Veterans Coalition, Young Farmers, again, nonprofits. So very excited. So we're just hoping you'll all help spread the word and reach out to us. As far as products go, we're looking to source things such as dairy, eggs, meat, poultry, fresh produce, seafood when applicable, beverages, honey, and processed foods. I just want to highlight that because we are a food bank, all meat needs to be USDA processed. So we are working with suppliers, and we understand the expense is high. A lot of producers are using TDA facilities, but again, it does have to be USDA. So we'll work with you as far as pricing so that those processing fees can be incorporated into price of product. I am looking at CSA shares, working closely with several organizations that are doing that. If anyone is heavy currently on winter crops, please reach out to me. We've had a lot of farmers that do have surplus, and we don't want you to be sitting on that and have a loss. So we'd love to help you out there. And of course, we want to be a channel for purchasing surplus crop now and in the future. So this is a very unique position for us to be in, where we are able to purchase product, and we are purchasing at a premium. So what you are charging retail. So please remember that. Food banks typically operate on a donation base. So again, we feel very fortunate that we're able to work in our communities to bring fresh food to our communities. So again, if you want to have a meeting or talk, we're trying to get an understanding of what your crop planning looks like, the variety that you have, and of course, how much you have. And I will, of course, share this with Rachel and knows that she does have it, but these are the farm to family contacts within each food bank. I am operating as point person. So if you have a question that you want to direct to me because you're sitting on the call today, please do. And then I can make an introduction and connect you with the food bank that makes most sense. So please, again, reach out to me if any questions regarding LFPA. I think I see that. I'm going to just double check if I have any questions in the queue. I do have a question here. Are you looking for dairy suppliers? Absolutely. Food banks are always in dire need of proteins. So meat, eggs, dairy, any milk, any products of that is definitely something that we are very interested in. So please reach out to me.